The story is not about grand battles. It's not even about good versus evil. Now, both those things are a part of The Hobbit, but that isn't the main point. As the prelude to The Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien's 1937 novel The Hobbit is all but inseparable to the great epic. Due to its treatment on the big screen, though, I think many audience members are confused as to what the story is about versus what it is not about. I'm not simply talking about the fact that we have a shorter book made into 3 longer films, although that is a factor in the discussion. When The Lord of the Rings had much taken out, The Hobbit had more added in. Remaining sequences were changed, and the main characters, for the most part, stayed the same. Before we get started, I'd like to let you guys know that I have reviewed every Lord of the Rings film, every film of The Hobbit, and both seasons of The Rings of Power, plus have done adaptation essays on all 3 parts of The Lord of the Rings on this channel before, and if you haven't seen any of those videos, you can click up in the corner to find my Middle-earth playlist. With that being said, let's get right back into the video. Many of the following plotlines and sequences were added to build the film on an international level to make the films feel like they were encompassing more material than just the quest to reclaim the Lonely Mountain. And this includes the world-building scenes with Mirkwood and Laketown. Every sequence with Gandalf, the Necromancer, and Dol Guldur was added to make the films feel bigger, and how we're setting up Sauron, of course, for The Lord of the Rings. Now, the events we see unfolding here with the Necromancer happened canonically. It's just in the book, it never mentions them, and it's described later in The Lord of the Rings. The other storyline that was added completely was the vengeance between Azog the Defiler and Thorin Oakenshield. Now, the problem here is that Azog, despite being portrayed perfectly in these films, he's a really cool character. In the context of the canon, he's already dead, and that makes it seem really awkward. And there's no mention of him ever having a grudge of any kind with Thorin specifically. So that's original to the movies too. And I think a better decision should have been, if we're going to have a main orc character, have it be Bolg, who is the son of Azog, and who is also mentioned in the final Battle of the Five Armies in the book. Have him be the main orc character. As if having a dragon as your main villain wasn't enough, I guess. For The Hobbit, almost everything else that was added was changing or extending sequences that were already there. The barrels out of bound and the attempt to kill Smaug in the mountain are the best examples. Now, with these two, there are points where it gets too cartoonish. Most of the scenes from the book were adapted extremely well, though. The beginning sequence with Bag End, Riddles in the Dark, the Mirkwood Spiders, the conversation with and death of Smaug, and more. The final Battle of the Five Armies is a tough thing to talk about because I'll admit it was dragged out too much for the films, but I always would have made it longer when bringing it from book to film because in the book it's only 5 pages, and yeah, that would not have worked well. It needed to be longer for the movie. When talking about the battle scenes, we can bring up an important point, not just about this adaptation, but adaptation in general. I understand that because of the medium change, things will not be the same. And I'll admit that if they adapted The Hobbit as close as they possibly could to the book, one movie, we're going to try and do it as close to the book as we possibly can, it would have been boring because of the medium change, because it would not have translated well from book to screen. Now, I'll admit, 3 movies is too much, and I think that it would have been better for them to go with part 1 and part 2 like they originally planned. Anyway, the main reason these movies often feel lost is because they too often lose their essence. What is the story really about? Whenever you're adapting somebody else's work, even though you are making changes, like obviously that's going to happen, I would think that you should have to try, at least try, to keep the point of the story the same. In this case, the story is not about grand battles. It's not even about good versus evil. Now, both those things are a part of The Hobbit, but that isn't the main point. The story is about, well, The Hobbit, his personal journey from beginning to end. Martin Freeman is delightful as Bilbo Baggins and perfectly shows his status quo standing and how his perfect little schedule is derailed by Gandalf and Thorin's company. In addition, we see how a small spark of adventure pushes him to join the dwarves' quest. Despite all the ways that these movies try to sideline the main character, The Hobbit still finds a way to deliver the best moments of these movies. He has help, of course, from Richard Armitage as Thorin Oakenshield, who in his performance is perfect for these films. It is made clear from the very beginning that he is one set apart from the other dwarves. And for the most part, that's a good thing, because I would say the way that Thorin is handled in these movies, he's closer to Tolkien's dwarves than any other dwarf that we've seen. The script for Thorin is not perfect, but even with these missteps in the script, this powerful character still shines. And his tragic death was justifiably changed for the films, and Armitage and Freeman were great in their last scene together. Even with the excess characters, battles, and plotlines, the main point of the change of Bilbo Baggins from beginning to end still manages to come through. The Hobbit Trilogy has hints of the powerful emotional story from the original novel, but unfortunately holds itself back. Due to the prior success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, unnecessary decisions were made to make these films like the ones that came before it. In addition, trying to make the one book into 3 long films led to plot points being dragged out at best, but adding embarrassing moments at worst. The fact that the scenes from the book are the best moments reveal the truth. These movies needed to lean into what made them different, rather than try and emphasize the similarities. The Hobbit movies are still very entertaining and better than I originally thought, but when it comes to adapting Tolkien's first novel set in Middle-earth, unfortunately, they don't do as good of a job as they should have. With that being said, the Hobbit Trilogy gets an overall adaptation score of 6 out of 10. Hello everyone, welcome back to Movies with Michael. If you enjoyed this adaptation essay, you can show it by leaving a like on this video and comment down below what you think the filmmakers did right or wrong when adapting this book to the big screen. I understand that I couldn't get through everything today, but please remember to subscribe to this channel and click the notification icon to be notified about my latest videos. That's all for now, and I'll see you all next time.